this hall, you have a series of works that Husain made in the 1980s on India's freedom struggle, starting from the bloody Jallianwala Bagh tragedy to Gandhiji's Dandi March and the Quit India movement. Born in 1915, he lived through the freedom struggle, the independence movement, supported it, and then, of course, lived through, experienced, witnessed, and contributed as well to the success of a new nation. I'm getting you here a top view, an aerial view of the education city, which is where the M.F. Husain Museum, the Lawh Wa Qalam, is located. So the idea here being that this is a museum which is going to be getting a footfall, not just for those museum hopping as part of their international itinerary, but is going to be visited by students, by young scholars as well, by the next generation, and exactly the idea that should be for the glorious legacy of a great artist. What you see here is an M.F. Husain sketch with his writing transformed into this building. He had designed the architecture of what his museum should look like, and this is how it has taken shape. Lawh Wa Qalam, that's his writing. The first stop at the Lawh Wa Qalam Museum is this room, which is an immersive art experience of M.F. Husain's works. Now, this is a new form of art. This wasn't there in Husain's lifetime. But now you have the canvases of M.F. Husain being animated in this form. It is also the best way to give an introduction to an artist who has a wide variety and variation of works. It's actually very fascinating.
Sculptures. This is a very it's really weird towards the furniture support, and you also make noise. So this visual lamp is similar to the rocking chair that he made for his daughter Raisa.
It's quite a holistic collection because if one is aware of the variety of mediums that the artist worked with, you'll see an example of that right at this museum with collections that are dating across decades, which are collected from the world over. What you have here are wooden cutout pieces dated 1992 in the 1990s, beautifully exhibited here with mirror images and giving us a view of the expanse of his skill. These are a series of ink blots on cotton paper that Husain made in the 1990s. In this hall, you have a series of works that Husain made in the 1980s on India's freedom struggle, starting from the bloody Jallianwala Bagh tragedy to Gandhiji's Dandi March and the Quit India movement. Husain's life was placed in a very interesting time in the history of India. Born in 1915, he lived through the freedom struggle, the independence movement, supported it, and then, of course, lived through, experienced, witnessed, and contributed as well to the success of a new nation. Behind me is a triptych of Husain dated 1987, which he made to mark the 99th birthday of Indian scientist C.V. Raman. These are the last few items that Husain was using in the final days of his life. His spectacles, his notebook, sketchbook, his muffler, his paintbrush, one brush that he always carried with himself, and the Indian passport, the passport that he gave up in the last and final year of his life as he rushed out of the country on a self-imposed exile because of all the stress and protests that he was facing, and took up Qatari citizenship to work on the finale of his artistic life, the final results of which we are seeing in this museum. As Hussain kept India very close to his heart, this is a landmark series that Hussain painted in the early 2000s, 10 sets of canvases, each one dedicated to one faith that is followed in India. So, this of course includes Sikhism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism. The last and final work of this series is called Humanism. This is the last and final sketch made by M.F. Husain, which is also the finale of this museum. It's a sketch of the installation, a moving installation which is called Siru Fi al Ard. And he made a detailed sketch before he passed away. The work was launched several years after his death. It is going to mark the finale of the museum as well. But here's an interesting personal point. Do you see that red color car, that red Ferrari in the sketch? That is the car in which Hussain and I sat and took a short 5 to 10 minutes ride. He loved driving that Ferrari. And he told me, do you think I'm having fun in this Ferrari? Is just for having fun? Is just for enjoying a good life? Well, it is actually part of my upcoming work. At that time, a lot of us laughed it off. When he said this to me personally, I also laughed it off. But it's true that red Ferrari is part of his final work. I remember I also asked him, do you think your life is like a Ferrari car? And he said, yes, my life, it has that youth, it has that power. These are M.F. Husain's horses made in Murano glass. These were sketched by him, designed by him, and then he instructed the Murano glass artisans on how to make them in his signature style of galloping horses. And guess where these horses are going? This is just the model size. The real life size horses made in Murano glass are going to be part of his final installation, the final hurrah, which is titled Siru Fi al Ard. And it gives me great pleasure to look at all this because when I interviewed him the last time before he passed away, he was talking to me very excitedly that at that time he was going to Venice next week and he's planning to make these Murano glass horses. He's designing them. It was also really a hit and trial method on how to get it exactly right. Making the model size was easy, but making the life size of horses in Murano glass, that was the challenge. And for that as well, he left behind very detailed instructions. They were completed by the team of Qatar Foundation posthumously for Hussain. There's so many of the works in this collection which are landmark. This is a well-recognized work of 2008 called The Last Supper. And this is an image of the Zuljana horse painted by Hussain in Doha itself in the year 2007. The Zuljana horse was a grey stallion, Arabian horse, and it was a very beloved horse of Hussain Ali. It was a horse which was raised by the Prophet, peace be upon him. It is a work of art which also finds its way into a very prominent place in the museum collection. What is that one thing that you learned about him while you were curating this show, which you felt was very special as an artist with an international standing, not just Asia or India, but a global artist and someone who could stand with contemporary times? What is that one thing that you learned or it dawned upon you?
I think if I'd like to say what motivated me the most about
Sure.
him
Yeah.
is, I know I keep saying multidisciplinary, but it really was motivating to me, and I was hoping that this is something that's going to resonate with everyone. Is
Mhm.
you don't really have to confine your art into one space or one medium. You are able to, and you can excel in so many different mediums. You can test and work and
he started with calligraphy, for example, when he was a young boy.
Right.
And you see his work expanded from such a young age until the last works that he's done, and the combination that he has in some of the Arab and Islamic civilization works, such as that of Battle of Badr, where he has Inna fatahna lakum fathan mubina, and that was one of the first few lines that he learned when he was a child. So what I would say, what motivated me and what I'd like the visitors to come to the museum is to know that you really can be whatever it is that you want it to be. You don't have to confine yourself to one medium, but allow to yourself to explore.
So what were these conversations that you had with the artist in his absence? Because you just had this piece of paper on which he'd made a sketch. It was a 2D sketch, and you had to turn it around into a 3D structure in a building. What were these conversations that you had in your head?
So I think when you're looking at a piece of art, as a viewer, there are several readings of an artwork. I think different viewers bring in different readings of artworks. And so in some senses, it was not very different from that we're looking at an artwork which has a literal reading to it, it has a metaphorical reading to it, it has a reading that is led because of our own understanding of M.F. Husain as people who've grown up in India.
Yeah.
So there are these multiple layers that are there. And the question was that, a successful building would be one that actually acknowledges several of these layers. So while some
and
parts of it are
that
literal,
original sketch intact.
Exactly. So while some parts of it may appear to be literal, there are others that are sort of more metaphorical. They kind of talk about cross-cultural links. They talk about syncretism. They talk about broader regional identity that goes beyond India to South Asia and to West Asia. So I think that the idea, the conversations with him were about trying to bring and keep these spirits through architectural gestures. How do we bring in kind of, different types of arches that may talk about a history of a certain, an architectural place and a time. And how does one, bring in references to Yemen, which are there in the sketch, but also to Central Asia through the blue tiles. So, we were thinking at several levels. And so those were the exciting conversations to be that we had while designing the building. Wow.
I think you're the only one who can claim who had conversations with him in his absence.
Yes, probably. And I'm grateful for that, and for the opportunity to build this museum.
The true artist does not paint because he wants to sell. He paints because he has to.
The M.F. Husain Museum is coming together of two worlds, the arts from the East and the West. And the Lawh Wa Qalam is sitting right in the center of this international arts ecosystem as a bridge, simply through the genius of his brushstroke. A promise made is a promise kept, and a noble word that was given in Husain's lifetime, that there would be a museum in his name dedicated to his work. That is exactly what we're celebrating today. It's also a triumph of the human spirit with Her Royal Highness of Qatar, Sheikh Hamza bin Nasser, who promised that she would make this museum. It's 14 years after his lifetime, and this is how we are celebrating him today.